So my name is Kathy, and I am here representing Ameda. And August is World Breastfeeding Month. August 1st through 7th is World Breastfeeding Week. And the last week of August is actually Black Breastfeeding Week. So we have 4 experienced breastfeeding moms with us here today, and we're going to talk breastfeeding. And the goal of this is not only to celebrate World Breastfeeding Week and month, but also to help new moms who are just starting breastfeeding get off on the right foot and get, down and dirty about all of your breastfeeding questions. So we're going to start by having everybody here introduce themselves. Just your first name, where you live, city and state, your baby's names and ages, and how long you've been breastfeeding. So who would like to start?
I'll start. My name's Amanda. I am in Connecticut. I have 3 kids. Juliana is 3, Grayson's 5, and my newest addition is Gabriella. She's a year. I've been breastfeeding for the length of all 3 of my beautiful kids. Who wants to go next?
I'm Sarah Haley. I live in Santa Monica, California, but right now we are in the Chicago suburbs for the summer. I have 4 children. They are 9, 6, 3, and 9 months, and I breastfed everybody for about 12 to 14 months. So I'm currently breastfeeding my youngest.
Great.
Cool. So my name is Deidre Summerfield. I live in Michigan. I was born and raised in Texas. Gabrielle is 3 months old as of yesterday, and I've been breastfeeding her for 3 months. She's my first baby, only baby.
Okay.
All right, my name's Jaleesa. I live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I have a 3-year-old. Her name is Elia, and then I also have a 5-month-old. His name is Alessio. I breastfed Elia for 16 months, and now I've been breastfeeding Alessio for 5 months.
Great. You guys are definitely the ones to ask with all of your combined experience. I wasn't keeping track when you were talking, but we have many, many years of experience breastfeeding with you. So, and look who joined us. Gabby, right?
Yeah.
Cutie.
Aww.
So the first question I wanted to ask you guys is, why did you decide to breastfeed? Did somebody or something influence you? And also, when did you start thinking about it? Did you know before you even were pregnant that you wanted to, or was it something that came later on? So tell us about your decision.
I'll go. So it took a lot for my husband and I to get pregnant in general. So I knew that when we finally did, I wanted to soak up every moment and opportunity that I could as a mom. So I knew from the moment I became pregnant with my daughter, I knew that I wanted to breastfeed, and worked with a nurse who I had going through the lactation consultant classes. I had her sending me all of the videos to learn about it before I gave birth. And I knew that I wanted to do the same with my son then too, just because I enjoyed it so much.
That's great.
That's really cool. That's really cool. For me, when I found out I was pregnant with Gabby, first of all, I was surprised. Wasn't planning that. But I was like, okay, we're married. We just built our house. Why not, right? So I found out I was pregnant, and my mom breastfed me. And out of my mom's 4 sisters and all of the 5 female cousins that I have, all of their moms, nobody breastfed but us. We're the only ones.
Wow.
So I definitely like the fact that we're the only ones, and I like the fact that it's so beneficial for her. And that's beneficial for me, right? Because these things hurt if we don't get this milk out. So
That's something I think a lot of new moms might not think about. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
For me, with a lot of things with motherhood, I kind of just have taken them as they come. And so I think, thinking back 9 years ago when I first breastfed my oldest, I think I just figured I'll try it. I had had a lot of friends who had babies before me, and I thought, I'll try it, and if it works out, great. And then if it doesn't, then there's other options. So I think going into it kind of a little bit stress free and saying to myself, we're just going to see how this goes.
Sure.
Fortunately, breastfeeding has come really easy to me, but I have so many friends who've struggled with it,
Yeah.
and haven't been able to, that I knew that it wasn't necessarily going to be easy. But fortunately it has been. And same thing, when I got to like 6 months of breastfeeding, I was like, okay, well, let's just keep seeing how this goes. And I think taking it one step at a time was really the key to not stressing myself out about it.
Mm.
And as a result, made it a little bit on the easier side for me.
Yeah, it can be stressful. I
Yeah.
agree with that. It definitely can, especially when your supply is dipping or fluctuating. That stresses me out, because she's only 3 months and I want to make it a year. The fact that y'all have made it so long is really admirable, and I would really love to make it a year. And I've been freezing and pumping and freezing my milk, so hopefully we make it that long.
Yeah, take it one step at a time, don't
Mhm.
don't look at it as a big picture. You just take it one day at a time, don't stress yourself over it. If you do or you don't make it, don't get upset about it either, don't be down on yourself. Everybody's different. Everybody's bodies are different, and how they respond to everything. So even if you can't, don't feel like you've failed or anything, because you haven't. You tried,
Yeah. I think those small steps, like I'm going to try to make it a week. And then
Yeah.
if it's great, let's try to make it a month. And then if it's great, and keep
Yeah,
going for as long as you feel comfortable, or as long as it works out for you.
absolutely.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It is exhausting. It takes
Oh, yeah.
a lot of time.
Oh yeah.
It takes a lot of effort. There's days where you think you have been just feeding all day long, and you want to break down and you want to cry, because you feel like that's all that they've been doing. But then you go to their checkups and you hear how much they've grown and how healthy they are, and that you're the reason, you're the reason for it. And that's amazing. I mean,
I
that's
seriously just got goosebumps when you were talking about all of the emotional benefits that you're getting from breastfeeding. Have the rest of you experienced emotions surrounding breastfeeding? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Gosh, like up and down. You have your highs and you have your lows. I think every single day there are days where I feel like I am just touched out. I've literally had a person attached to me all day long. But then there are times where you're feeding and you look down, and I don't know if Deidre, if you've gotten there with Gabrielle yet, but when they really recognize your face and your features, and you look down when you're nursing and they just have that big smile on their face. And I love just to feel the little hand touching my face, grabbing my lip, even though sometimes I'm just done. But you love it.
absolutely.
Sounds really cute. I'm looking forward to that. She doesn't really recognize my face, but she definitely knows when I'm in the room and when I'm not in the room. And she knows when there's definitely times where she will prefer my breast to a bottle, and that's somewhat inconvenient, I would say. But I definitely love it at the same time. It's like, okay, you want me, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to relax. I need to sit down. I want to eat. I want to wash my behind. I want to do something.
Yeah. Yes, I couldn't agree more. I understand.
She's so
For
cute.
me, it's been my hiding place. Like, so I have four kids. So it's always like, I have to go breastfeed now. Goodbye. Everybody take care of yourself.
Or when you have
So I'm
company.
a little bit panicked of what I do when I'm done. I'm like, maybe the running joke, because I know this is my last child. The running joke is that I will breastfeed him till he's 5, because I love that little quiet time that I get away from everybody else. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't breastfeed in front of the kids. I obviously do that too. But when I have the opportunity, especially when I'm putting them down for a nap, I'll go hide and breastfeed and just be alone. That's about as alone as I get these days. So
Right.
Well, you
Yeah.
touched upon something about it being like your last. It's funny, like when I had my first, I was really stressed about breastfeeding, and it's such a natural process because like when they put your baby on you for your first time, it's just amazing how they gravitate and they just
Mhm.
take their latch, and it's that's just amazing.
Yeah.
And then you go through the stress of breastfeeding all the time and being exhausted for those moments. And then you reach this point where, you're looking to possibly have your next child. So, in order to do that, you have to like wean. And that probably has to be the most emotional thing that I've ever done, is having to wean. I mean, it is I was a mess, an absolute mess. Like, I didn't know what to do. My husband's like, I can't understand. And, it's a hard thing to understand when you're not going through it yourself. But how have you all been through that, through weaning your child and not being able to have that one-on-one time anymore? Like, it was awful for me.
Deidre's listening and saying, what am I in for?
Oh my God, no.
Well, I actually think that is to me one of the most positive things about breastfeeding is it initiates that bond.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of people ask me that same question, like what do you have? Well, it started almost with the breastfeeding, right? I mean, it started in the womb, obviously, but
Yeah.
then that breastfeeding kind of initiates that bond,
Mhm.
so that when it is done or finished, it's that bond is already there. It's not gonna. I don't think it goes anywhere. It just changes a little bit, and then you discover new things, whether that's bedtime routines or
Yeah.
special time with mom. And I mean, trust me, I struggle with that all the time with having the 4 kids, and how do I have my special time with each of them.
Right.
But I think that's what's so great about the breastfeeding experience. And I've talked to my other kids about that. Yeah, I used to do this with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is definitely a very emotional, journey when even when you start thinking about weaning, and like it's time to start kind of trying to work on this. I remember the last time that I breastfed my daughter, and just kind of the emotions that I had surrounding that. And it was tough. It was really tough to even think about weaning, and then doing it and trying to get her to understand that you weren't going to feed off of mommy anymore. And I mean, of course she didn't understand that, but it definitely is hard.
Yeah.
So how, I'm hearing you all talk about the difficulties of weaning and that it's very emotional. How, and you're saying when it's time, how do you know when it's time to wean?
Mhm. I
Well,
think for me,
yeah, go ahead.
okay. I think for me, I realized, as difficult as this sounds to say it, I think for me, I just realized like I'm not enjoying this as much anymore, and I don't want to have any. I didn't want to have any negative feelings towards breastfeeding. I didn't want my daughter to feel any kind of stress from me. And when I felt like I was getting to the point where I was tapped out emotionally and physically, I knew it was time to start the weaning process.
Okay, that's fair. It's not bad.
No, no.
Go ahead.
No,
Amanda, you
go
good?
ahead, sir.
Oh, for my boys, so I have 3 boys and a girl. My girl is a 3-year-old. For the boys, I found, and I can kind of see this even with my 9-month-old, they got very distracted, like to the point where, I mean, they just didn't even want to stay on the boob. So it became stressful in a different way. So I definitely dropped I weaned them during the day to begin with, because I mean, that's just uncomfortable for everybody. And then the nighttime and the morning weanings, same kind of thing. They just didn't seem that into it. And then I had similar situation to you, Deidre, and just that like this wasn't a good fit for everybody anymore. And I felt good about it. My daughter, on the other hand, kind of what Amanda mentioned earlier, For me personally, I don't get my period back till I'm done breastfeeding. So in order to have another child, I did need to wean her. So I will share my trick with her that I probably will, well, depends on the way the world is at the moment when I decide to wean him. But with her, I went on a trip. I breastfed her the longest till 14 months because she didn't have the same kind of distractions. And I went away for the weekend, and when I came back, I was done. So I mean, I had done the weaning process somewhat. Up to then, it wasn't just like completely cold turkey, because otherwise that would have been very painful for me. But that was genius on my part, I thought.
Yeah,
To just
that's
go
great.
and come back, and that was it, you know. And she kind of also I think I was gone for maybe 3 days, and when I got back, it was kind of like she almost forgot,
Yeah,
because she'd been taking a bottle for
Yeah.
you know those 3 days.
right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is great. I mean, my 3 absolutely loved to nurse. Like, if I didn't stop, they probably would still be, the other 2 would probably still be nursing. They just loved it so much. But you know, it came to the point where I needed to sleep. And you know, it just, again, everybody's different and everybody has their own way of doing it. I think you personally will know when you're ready, and your body will tell you when you're ready. You know, again, it's your own journey. There's no book to follow for this. It's whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, that was really good to hear. I mean, the 3 of you have had really experienced very different cues. So I think it's really good for other new moms, and you know that includes Deidre, to hear that, because it's not like you're looking for one thing. It's listening to your body, listening to your baby's cues. So that's really great. So you guys have talked a lot and been smiling a lot about the great experience and the journey that is breastfeeding and the bonding. Have any of you experienced difficulties, sore nipples, engorgement, you know, those mastitis, those kinds of things?
Yeah.
If you
All
have,
the good stuff.
can you talk
All of
about
the
it
above.
and
All of the above.
maybe explain how you got through it?
Well, initially, you know, there's things that people don't tell you or just forget to tell you, and you think you're doing something wrong. But yes, completely engorged when you get home from the hospital. Your milk is coming in, and you're like, this is the way it's gonna be. I'm done. I'm not doing this. This is horrible. This is how I'm gonna feel all the time. And then, you know, then it stops, and you know, your milk supply comes in for the right amount for your baby. And then of course, I have had times where my nipples were really sore, and I had to actually, with Grayson, my first, I had to actually get a protector. He wasn't latching the way he should have been.
A shield?
Yeah, shield. And so that was exhausting, because I had to make sure I had that around all the time, because otherwise he wasn't able to latch. Of course, you know, with him breastfeeding for about 15 months, that allowed for the other 2 to get a good latch, and I didn't have a issue with the other 2 breastfeeding. But with him, I had to have the shields probably for at least 8 months. So that, I mean, if you lose that thing or don't know where it is,
Yeah.
you know, it's not a good thing. But yeah, those were some of my difficulties. And then of course, you know, with increasing their supply all the time, that's another amazing thing. They know exactly when they need more milk, and that's when they're on you even more during the day, and you're like, oh no, you know. And it happens for about, I don't know, sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks, where they're trying to build up their supply. So they're doing that throughout the day, and they're doing that throughout the night. But then, you know, you get relief after that. There's always a light at the end. And I think those are some of the things that, some people don't think to tell you, which is why this panel is so great, where we can really talk to one another and let each other know about these things.
It's definitely appreciated.
Yeah.
So,
I can jump in if you want.
yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I remember with my oldest, and I learned from it because it didn't happen with my other three. I had the cracked nipples all the time because I didn't realize that he was just sucking and not eating, which of course, I discovered the joy of the pacifier because as soon as I realized he was sucking too much. So I think sometimes as a new mom, you don't realize that they're not actually eating anymore. They're just sucking. And then sometimes that can cause the extra cracked nipples. And then I didn't really experience clogged ducts until baby 3 and 4. And I've had the most clogged ducts this time around because I think just because I forget, really early on, I forgot to pump. I didn't have time. I was just so busy with everybody else. And I had forgotten that with the rest of them, when they went to bed at night, that was when I would do my pumping. And so early on in this postpartum recovery, I got mastitis multiple times. I got clogged ducts. I still just have to keep up with my pumping at least once before I go to bed so that I don't get the clogged duct because I just don't have time to do enough during the day. So, I mean, that's the joy of the pump, right? It can save you from some of these aches and pains.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Fortunately, I did not have any kind of experience with mastitis so far, and only clogged ducts with my daughter. I haven't had that issue with my son, but with him, he was in the NICU for the first couple of days, and so they had been feeding him with a syringe, which obviously he didn't have to work for anything. He didn't have to actually do the sucking. He just stuck his tongue out and there it was. And so when we got home, it was a completely different experience. I also had to use a nipple shield for the first probably 2 months until he got the hang of things. But I will say one of my saviors, at least with my daughter, was Apno, which I've found not a lot of doctors actually tell you about. It's all-purpose nipple ointment, but it has to be specially compounded by pharmacies. And so it's not just an over-the-counter, on-the-shelf type of ointment that you can get for your nipples. You actually have to be prescribed it and find a pharmacy that can actually compound it by hand. So it was a savior for getting started with breastfeeding.
That's great. So how about you, Deidre? I know you've been busy with Gabby down there, but have you experienced any challenges that you've worked through?
Well, for me, I guess I didn't know how much it would hurt to begin with. Because I've always heard of painful and that being a process, but the fact that this little human is literally like attached so tight onto your nipple, and if you make any sudden movement while she's sucking, things can go wrong and it can really hurt. But I think for me that was really surprising, is how much it hurt and how much I have to eat and drink water to maintain.
Yes.
I would so.
You guys have shared a ton of good tips through discussing your challenges. A lot of moms are going to really appreciate hearing this straight from the source. And your experiences have been so varied. It's really admirable to hear how dedicated you all are. And so just for these last couple of minutes, with the spirit of World Breastfeeding Week and month and Black Breastfeeding Week in mind, why don't you share, say, your number one, or if you can't pick, go ahead and choose two of your breastfeeding tips or breast pumping tips for new moms who don't know what to expect.
Well, I have one,
Okay.
a car charger. So, I mean, when you're traveling or you're in the car, or even, with my first, I was working, I had a corporate job. So, I mean, having the ability to go into your car and have a little bit more privacy was awesome. So honestly, I highly recommend to making sure that you have a car charger and it's compatible with your breast pump.
Great. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah.
Sure.
Along those same lines, although if I know, like, if you're able to find either a brawl or something that just makes it difficult. I remember my first time pumping, or my first with my daughter, I would literally use one hand to hold them in place and use the other hand to do whatever I needed to do. So anything that can kind of like make it a little bit more hands-free when you're still able to do other things is great, and have everything that you need within reaching distance: your food, your water, your phone, everything that you need.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
One, two,
I think I would say just remember everything is just for now.
wait,
Somebody reminded me of that recently, that when it's hurting, it's just for now. When they aren't wanting to latch on, it's just for now. I mean, it could be for like a month or two, but I just feel like with everything with motherhood, it's like even the good things, right, that you think are gonna like last forever, they're just for now.
Yeah.
And to appreciate that and to know that you're gonna get through it. Two just like random tips that I always kind of forget until I've had the baby is that if you are out somewhere and you're not comfortable just breastfeeding in public, that swaddle is such a great cover. I'm not saying don't waste your money on a nice cover, but a swaddle tied around your neck is the perfect way to cover up in a bind. And I did this with my third, I hope to do, and I'll plan to do it with my fourth. When it is your last time breastfeeding, remember to take a picture.
That's a good idea. That's great.
Yeah, I wish I had it from my first two, and I don't have it, but I do have it from my third. So
Nice. Nice.
I would say, I think my biggest thing is if you notice in your pumping session, massage your boobs when you pump, because I didn't know that. And I would still feel like little hard areas in my breast. And then when I started massaging them and using heat when I was pumping, it made a world of a difference.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all. You've been amazing, and you're all really breastfeeding role models. And the way that you're willing to be open about it and talk to help other moms like yourselves is a great thing. And so from Ameda, we thank you very much for joining us here today. And you know, let's keep in touch. Let's keep the conversation going. And everybody enjoy World Breastfeeding Week and Month.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for having us.
Really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.